This is something that I feel like I needed when I was going through trying to figure out how to write my case studies within my portfolio. And so now I'm gonna give you what I got. Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Nannearl, and this is Unpacked Angles with me, where we're focused on widening the perspective on all things UX and more. If you can't tell, I'm playing in makeup this wave of quarantine. I actually don't know what I'm doing, but I've been watching a few YouTube tutorials, made a few Sephora purchases, and this is what we got so far. So don't judge me. I'm still getting there, but you know, it don't look that bad. But anyway, if you had a chance to listen to the previous episode where I talk about 5 things I wish I had known before jumping into UX, I'd mentioned something about portfolios and the fact that we need them in order to actually be considered within UX for a position, and how I absolutely did not think that they were necessary. But of course, this is like the name of the game right now. So I've mentioned portfolios, but I never actually mentioned how to make one. So for this episode, I wanted to get into the meat and potatoes of what actually goes into your portfolio, which are the case studies. So there are a few resources that I've linked in the description for you to check out. One is a presentation that I really liked. Another is, I think, a couple of articles. And I'm also providing a link to my portfolio so you can kind of take a look at it and reference some of the things that I'm going to be talking about. As a disclaimer, my portfolio is not perfect. Just know that I still have some feedback that I got a while ago that I still haven't incorporated, and right now don't feel the need to really, but the case studies that I have on there are pretty solid. In addition to all of that, for all of the UA community, everybody who has signed up for the newsletter and gets it every couple weeks, I will also be including my presentation that I normally give of my case studies when I am interviewing for UX research positions. This is a more condensed version of my portfolio and what that looks like, and I found it really useful and really helpful in communicating and just presenting the work that I've done. So if you have not signed up for the newsletter, you might as well. All you gotta do is go to the website and scroll to the bottom. But yeah, I want to talk about case studies, and so what I'm not gonna do is talk about how to create a portfolio. I think a lot of the time when people ask for feedback on their portfolio, or they're really trying to see if their portfolio is good, they're really talking about the actual case studies that you include in your portfolio and not necessarily the whole portfolio itself. I mean, some are, but what's really important are your case studies. So your portfolio is the whole shebang, right? It's your site that contains your information, more about you, how to contact you, in addition to your case studies and really whatever else you want to put on there. I personally like to be different, okay? So my portfolio has my blog on there in addition to all of like the normal, quote unquote, normal stuff. And if I had enough time and enough motivation, it would probably have my iPhone photography as well, because I got a whole lot of good shots. So really for your portfolio, I say just like kind of go with the flow, however you feel, and make it how you want to make it. And what you must include is information about you as a person and also as a professional, how to contact you, and of course, your case studies. Now, these need to be structured in the right way, which is why I'm going to be focused on case studies this episode. So what is a case study? This is the account from your perspective about how your project went. It's the story, basically, of your project from beginning to end. You go into the whole story where you break every little thing down. So you go from your role and who you were working with all the way through to the actual results and impact of what you did. So how do you write this? This, my friend, is the most important aspect, the writing. If you're not including the right info, then you're not going to get a call back from that recruiter or that hiring manager, whoever's looking at your portfolio. So that's not going to get you anywhere. On the flip side, if you're including too much information, people may not read all of that. So it's kind of going to have you sitting in the same boat. So you have to practice UX even with your portfolio. You got to know who it is that you're building for. Who are you creating this portfolio for? Who is going to be looking at your portfolio? hiring managers, potentially, recruiters, maybe, other random people that stumble across your link that might be interested to learn a little bit more about what you do. Sure. All people outside of your project. Which brings me to the rules of the game. The number one rule in the game is you have to write these case studies as if the person who's reading it has no idea who you are, has no idea what your company does or what the organization you're doing work for does. This person coming into your case study is clueless. They don't know anything. You gotta write from that perspective. Second rule is you have to be thorough but concise. And there is kind of an art to this, but really, you just gotta say what needs to be said and nothing else. Gotta cut out that fluff. Now, this can be a little bit harder for the research side than it is on the design side, because for design, you guys have a lot of visuals that you can use to supplement actual words, right? You can add in screenshots or like annotated designs, while researchers, y'all might not have that many visuals to go off of. So you have to speak your mind, your processes, your decision making in words. Now, if you do have the time, it is actually so helpful and so great to just create visuals as a researcher, not necessarily designs of the product, because like you're not the designer, but visuals as far as your process goes. If there is a specific method that you're using that could be somehow diagrammed, or the approach that you took, throw it in a chart, make it pretty looking, put it in a graph, create a simple graphic, use Canva or Figma, whatever you're comfortable with. Try and make something up. Visuals are really helpful for people, especially people who are just trying to look for the right person. And if they're not really getting what they need, they're just going right on to the next. You gotta entice people. You gotta keep them there. You're not trying to make them read too much. But as a researcher, it is important that you know how to tell a story, because at the end of the day, you're not gonna have a whole bunch of designs. So you will need to be using words in your case studies. Third and final rule that I'm gonna say of this game is to avoid rose-tinted glasses, or rose-colored glasses. How does the saying go? Avoid rose-colored glasses as much as you can. Let me break that down. You have to be honest. So if things were not rosy all the time throughout the entire project, then say that. Be sure to make that clear. Mistakes are gonna happen. There's gonna be places where you might have dropped the ball. You gotta be honest about all of that. It seems contradictory, but trust, it will help you in the long run, especially if you reflect on some of the things that you learned at the end of your case studies, which we're gonna get into in just a second. Now, this does not apply if you were like, did some stuff that is just not acceptable or not explainable. You know, use your best judgment. I can't help you there, but for the rest of us, let's just be honest. But now we're gonna jump into the structure. How do we actually write this thing, right? Like, what's the order of events? Step by step. This is something that I feel like I needed when I was going through trying to figure out how to write my case studies within my portfolio. And so now I'm gonna give you what I got. So we wanna start with an intro. Remember, we are writing for people who don't know a daggone thing. So they don't know who you are, they don't know where you came from, they don't know why you're doing this project. So who is this for? Why is this happening? Is there a backstory? Set the scene. That's really what we're trying to do here. We gotta set the scene, set this up so that the person that's coming in, who doesn't know anything, can be caught up to speed. This should not be super long, like at all. It should really just be enough to have that person understand why this project is taking place and who it's for and what they do. And of course, like if there's a story behind that, it's good to include that too. Then next we have the project details. What role did you play in this project? Did you work with anybody else? What roles did they play? How long was the project for? How long did it last? Did you use any specific tools while working on this project? What were those? You might want to include like what platforms you worked on also, if that's something that you think might be interesting to the people who are looking at your portfolio. Next, we go into the actual objective of the case study. So now that we've kind of set the scene and we've gone through the details of the project, just kind of like putting it out there, what's the issue that you're solving for? What were your goals? If you're doing a UX research portfolio, if this is a research case study, what research goals were there in addition to the business goals? This might be where you're inserting your hypotheses too. This is basically the section that many label like the problem, except I don't call it the problem because I learned at this conference that I went to maybe a year or two. Oh my gosh. It's been a while. Corona, what is time? Some time ago, I went to this conference and I was asking someone about, the best way to do a research portfolio because I literally was lost and I did not understand how to do a portfolio without any visuals. And this person, kind of gave me an outline, but instead of saying problem, he used objective. And there was like some conversation with his colleague about how objective is replacing like the problem because of like the negative connotation of like problem, like the word problem. And so I've just been going with that ever since. And I do like objective more. Anyway, that's why I use objective. I encourage other people to use objective because I do think problem sounds negative or like problematic. From there, we go into the solution. So what approach did you take? Did you and your team create some kind of plan? What was that? For research, what methods were you thinking about using and why? And which ones did you choose? What made you choose one over the other? Really get into your decision-making process here. What is the story behind your choices? And how was everything set up and executed? For design, what design decisions did you make and why? With design, this will probably be a lot more showing what you did. With research, on the other hand, you'll probably be I was gonna say speaking, but typing a little bit more as far as like communicating what your decision-making process was. I normally try to take as many pictures as possible, like when I'm doing any type of research study that I'm able to take pictures at because they do end up being really handy when it comes to being on my portfolio. But then also I just like taking pictures. Told y'all about them iPhone photography shots that I got. I take pictures. It's great for the portfolio. It's also helpful to to help me remember things that happen. Images, pictures help me in a lot of different ways, and including them in my case studies is one of them. But yeah, you go through and you talk about what you had planned for the solution, what different things were executed and how they were done. And then we get into the major learnings and key findings. It kind of depends on like what you want to call that, I guess, but they're basically the same thing. So this is where we talk about what we actually learned after implementing the solution. Are there any interesting things here that we learned? If so, point those out and say why they're interesting. And then from there, we go into the major takeaways. So what are the major takeaways from what we've learned? Here is where we talk about any recommendations that have been made and the results. We went through devising a solution for this issue, then we implemented it and learned some stuff, right? Now, we want to talk about what the outcome was. Was there any impact to the product as a result? What about the business? You really want to get into metrics here if you can. So whether that be money or time or any other thing that shows the impact of the project on the business. And again, remember to keep those rose-colored glasses put away and make sure we're as honest as possible at this step. We got to keep it real. If anything went south or some unexpected thing happened and stuff didn't go the way that we planned, then say that, because that brings us into one of the last sections, which is my favorite section. And I always put this into my portfolio because I think it's really important to show like that kind of retrospective aspect of everything. But you really want to include your lessons learned. And I keep it very real here. I have said that, I didn't find enough people to interview, therefore XYZ happened this way. I've said I dropped the ball on this, that, and third, therefore blah, blah, blah happened. And now I know going forward, blah, 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 whatever. Not necessarily like findings about the project, but actual lessons that you learned, whether it's about yourself or about the process or about the products. Like, very, I guess, meta. That's a new term for me, meta. Like, I've always heard of like metadata, but I'm hearing meta everywhere I turn now. I don't know. Is this a thing? Is this a thing right now? But yeah, mistakes happen all the time, right? They will happen. All that matters is that you learn from them for your next project. Reflection can be really powerful. I have actually gotten a lot of comments specifically on this section of my portfolio when it comes to feedback from different people, and it's been a section that people really enjoy. They've enjoyed reading for whatever reason. I don't know. Yeah, it's just been a source of positive feedback for me. So spreading the wealth here. I would encourage having it. And then finally, you want to end with next steps. If you want to put lessons learned, I guess at the very, very end, you can do that. But also remember to include the next steps. So where are you going from here? Where is the team going from here? What recommended next steps do you have? Or if there's not necessarily a next steps because of the nature of the project or whatever, what next steps would you recommend that the team take? Even if they're just hypothetical and they didn't actually happen. What are those next steps and why are you recommending them? That is really about it. I wanted to make sure I went through, just kind of the basic rules and also the structure of case studies and what really has worked for me in the past and what's working for me, I guess, technically right now, but more so in the past. I thought this was gonna be a longer video because of the many different sections, but I guess not, since I didn't have too much to say about each of them. I think they're pretty straightforward, but if you do have any questions or there's some confusion somewhere, you just are not really sure still like where to go or like what to do, leave me some comments and hit me up, let me know, and I'll see if I can make it more clear for you. Almost forgot my parting question, y'all. Did not forget this time. Your girl gonna remember. We're gonna keep it going. My parting question for you today is, if you're a UXer and you've made a portfolio or you are making a portfolio, what has been the hardest part? Let me know in the comments. And that's where I'm gonna wrap it, y'all. I hope that you learned something, took away something from this. If you liked what you heard and you want to stick around for this ride, be sure to subscribe. And if you want to get notified anytime I post new content, you can hit that notification bell as well. I post every other Wednesday. If you want to sign up for the newsletter so you can get the goodies, go ahead and sign up. You can sign up on the website at www.unpackedangles.com, and you can also find us on social media. So if you want to hit us up there, you can find us on Instagram and on Twitter at Unpacked Angles. And of course, if you're listening on the podcast, be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and a review. But as always, let me know what you doing, what you working on, what you got going on. And until next time, y'all, deuces.